This week, I am getting out of my reading comfort zone and picking books from genres that I don't normally reach for. I have 4 books that I want to read for this video. They are all from different genres that I have read before, but I don't reach for very often. I would say my comfort zone genres are fantasy and romance, romantasy, young adult fantasy. But this week we are dipping our toes into 4 other genres that I have read books from before, but I don't pick up books from those genres very often at this point in my life. The first book that I am reading is The Woman by Kristen Hanna, and I actually bought this on my Kindle. I wanted to get it from the library, but literally, you guys, 560 people on the wait list are like had holds. I didn't even check Libby at that point because I was like, you know, it's gonna be even worse because my Libby app is even worse. So I just bit the bullet and bought it on my Kindle. I started it last night. I'm on page 62, which is kind of the beginning of chapter 7. I'm enjoying it so far. It's a historical fiction. That is our first genre. I think the only other historical fiction I've ever read is The Tattooist of Auschwitz, and that might have been like 3 years ago. So it's been a minute since I picked up a historical fiction. I don't have anything against the genre. I just, again, don't normally reach for it, but I wanted to read this book. My cousin actually recommended it to me, so I was like, I want to read it. What I've gathered so far is that it is about a nurse who goes to Vietnam during the 60s. So it is the Vietnam War. America is over there, and I don't know if this is based on a true story. I'm gonna look that up and get back to you guys, but so far it is very intense. So this main character comes from a family of military men. So the men go off to the military. Her brother went to Vietnam. She didn't even realize that she could go to Vietnam too, because growing up she was only told stories about the men. So the women were supposed to stay home, get married, have kids, and the men were the heroes. That's just what she believed. That just struck me. I'm like, how many people in history have believed that? And it's your beliefs are not necessarily true. That's just what it reminded me of. It was just kind of crazy and a little bit infuriating that so many women, probably even today still, believe that. But you can do anything you set your mind to. Yeah, okay. What I am trying to say, but I think I'm saying poorly, is that she didn't realize she could do other things or like step out of the box that her family and society put her into. It didn't even cross her mind at all. That to me was just kind of an epiphany of like, wow, if people don't even realize they're put in a box, how are they supposed to get out of the box, get over the barriers, get past the obstacles? Anyways. The book that I'm going to be reading alongside The Woman, I already started as well, but I only got 1 chapter in, and this genre is nonfiction. I used to read exclusively nonfiction in college. I barely touched a fiction book until maybe my last semester. I am reading All in Her Head by Dr. Elizabeth Coleman. It is The Truth and Lies Early Medicine Taught Us About Women's Bodies and Why It Matters Today. I am excited to get into this more. I just read the first chapter in the intro, and it sounds really interesting. First chapter was about skin, and specifically plastic surgeries and societal's influence in plastic surgeries, male surgeons' influence on female patients who get plastic surgeries. Very interesting, and I'm curious to see where she takes this. This review really got me. By combining essential medical histories about women's bodies with all the narrative propulsion of a medical thriller, Coleman has written a must-read, compelling, and important book. She was on a podcast that I was listening to. I don't know, that's usually how I find out about like nonfiction books, is from the podcast that I listen to, but I'm excited to read a nonfiction book. I've only read 1 nonfiction book this summer, and that was kind of a memoir. It was The Last Lecture, and before that, I think it was like this spring. So I really want to get back into nonfiction and just like have a nonfiction book that I'm reading alongside my fiction books. So those are 2 out of the 4 genres right off the bat. I'm actually 51% into The Woman, and I don't think I've ever been so pissed off for a character in a book than I am right now. in this book. It took me a little bit to get into, and I think that's because it's been a really long time since I read a historical fiction, but once I got into it, I was in. And now I'm like getting so pissed off for this main character because she's had all these experiences and people are like, no, that didn't happen. Imagine you have an experience, a traumatic experience, and people are like, no. I would be so livid, so pissed off, and I'm being real pissed off for this character right now. I'm almost to part 2. Suffice to say, I'm really enjoying it. It's really reminded me of a lot of things that my eyes have been open to in real life, specifically how women were treated, racial issues, and the civil rights movement and everything surrounding that. And specifically, not just how women are treated, but how Black women are treated. Like, pissing me off. We still have 50% of the book to get through, so I'm actually really curious to see where it goes. Kristen Hanna's writing, I'm really enjoying it. She makes it super easy. I'm not confused. The pacing seems really good, and I really like the characters. Some of them are pissing me off, but I like the main character that we're following, and I really hope her circumstances improve because it's kind of getting sad too. Angry and sad. If a book can make me feel those things, it's good. Also, I maybe am like halfway through chapter 2 of this book, which is maybe like page 50, and we're slowly but surely getting through my first like big nonfiction book in a while. The chapters are split into different organ systems, I guess. So the chapter I'm on now is bones, and the first chapter I read was skin. It's been feeling good to get out of my reading comfort zone a little bit. It's funny that I'm reading these books at the same time because they both touch on like misogyny, racism, all of that. Just listen to this. Anthropologists led the charge here, scrutinizing skulls belonging to people of various races and concluding predictably that white men like them were the most intellectually evolved creatures on the planet. It's just bewildering, really. Pissing me off too. Jeez. Practitioners began to pay particular attention to women's skulls, scrutinizing them for signs of inferior intelligence. Bruh. So I finished Woman by Kristen Hanna last night, and it did take me a while to read. I think I only talked to you guys maybe once about it, but it took me a while even beyond that 60% point. And I think that's just because I haven't read a historical fiction in a while, but I did really enjoy it. I think I'm gonna give it a 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed Kristen Hanna's writing, and I think the way she told this story was really beautiful. So we're following Frankie basically throughout her early life, kind of becoming a new adult, and then into her 30s, and she went to Vietnam in the war as a nurse, and then that's pretty much the first half of the book, but then you also get to see her come home and deal with that. So there's almost like a decade and a half of her life that takes place in the book after the Vietnam War, and you get to see like how the war affected her and her loved ones, and it's just like a roller coaster, and there's so much stuff that happens that I was like, that is so messed up. There were so many twists and turns that I did not expect, and I really loved the way it ended. I thought it was beautiful. She kind of had to rediscover herself after coming back from the war, and I love the way Kristen Hanna did it. I definitely want to read another Kristen Hanna book. So if you've read Kristen Hanna, I would love your recommendations for what one I should read next, because I really enjoyed her writing, and it was just really inspired to read about women at a time when men were the majority of the individuals who were celebrated for being veterans and going to war. So that was really special. I actually had to return All in Her Head to the library because it was due, and I'm on the wait list on Libby right now for the audiobook because I think I might like the audiobook version better of that. So once it's my turn to borrow the book on Libby, I'll keep listening to that. But I don't really have many updates for that. I didn't really get super far. But the next book that I'm reading for this getting out of my comfort zone reading challenge is All Good People Here by Ashley Flowers. This book was recommended to me by a friend. I don't know anything about it really going into it. I read the little, was it synopsis? Wow, I can't think of words right now. And I do know that the author of this book is actually the co-host of Crime Junkie, and I used to listen to that podcast all the time in college, and I just stopped. I think it was kind of freaking me out. I'd say thriller is just a step out of my comfort zone. I'd say horror is very far out of my comfort zone. Thrillers and mysteries. I think I've read 2 this year. No, I think I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder last year. Or did I read it this year? I don't know. And then none of this is true. So I have read 2 this year, but out of the 82 books I've read so far this year, that's not very many. I think it takes place in a small town, and I think we're on like 2 different timelines, and there's been a murder in this small town that loves to gossip. I did like this last line of the synopsis. What are your neighbors capable of when they think no one is watching? Why can't I figure this out? Oh my god. Hello?
Chapter 3. Muscle.
Oh, okay.
Muscular. Who's the weakest of them all?
Hello! Okay, it's been a few days, and actually it's been probably a little bit. I don't remember the last time we talked, but I'm on chapter 12, page 111. I'm really enjoying this book so far. It was really slow in the beginning. It still is kind of slow. I'm not really in that, like, I need to know what happens, you know what I mean? So I'm not in that headspace, but I am wanting to keep reading and like figure it out. It's like I want to know, I don't need to know. I'm about, I think, a third of the way through, maybe a little bit more than a third of the way through, and I'm hoping to finish it maybe this weekend if I'm lucky, but it might be a little bit longer because your girl is busy. There is multiple timelines, and there's 2 different events that have happened. So 2 different unalivings of little girls, but in towns that are very close to each other, and the character who we are following in the present tense was friends with the girl who was unalived in the previous timeline. There's like a little bit of connection, and then she's also a reporter who was asked to kind of investigate this new unaliving that's happening currently. I hope that made sense. I do think we're kind of getting a little too much into the main characters' lives. I'm like, is this really relevant? But maybe it will be. Also, I made it to chapter 4 on All in Her Head. I've been listening to it. I got it on Libby. And this book, if you want to get pissed off, this is a great book to read because I just can't believe, like, I mean, I can believe it, but it's just like honestly so disgusting how men viewed women historically, especially like physicians. Pisses me off. But I think this is really well written. The quotes that are in this book are insane. I think Dr. Coleman does a great job of relating it back to today and why these things matter and how they're still relevant. I'm really liking listening to it better too. That's been a lot of fun. Hot if I turn this down. I'm currently stuck in parking ramp traffic. Yeah, at work, because everybody's trying to leave right now. And it's already been 10 minutes, and I'm only 1 floor lower, and there's 4 more floors to go. But anyways, and there's people walking. They're gonna be like, why is this girl filming? I'm listening to All in Her Head, and I wanted to give you guys an update on the books I've been reading. All in Her Head and All Good People Here. They both start with All. I have some news on All Good People Here, but before I do that, I want to give an update on All in Her Head, and it just feels like I'm listening to a 12-hour long podcast, and that's very fun. And anytime I'm just driving somewhere quick, I'll turn it on. Sometimes I'll just listen to music, because normally I'm like a jam in the car to music. Ooh, we're moving a little bit. We're moving a that was like 2 feet. Normally I'm like a jam in the car, but I've kind of become a listen to audiobook in the car, especially longer car rides. I don't know if I'll give another review or update when I'm done, but I have a chapter left. So this chapter, like, it just gets worse and worse about how women were mistreated by their physicians, and that's fun. It does like do a good job diving into the history of each system and like, again, how women were treated and how they were seen as like, oh, it's just all in her head. It makes sense why certain stigmas still exist in the medical field today, blah blah blah, all that stuff. I wish she would have gave more solutions about like what she thought maybe could be better today. I think there was a little bit, but it was more so just like complaining about how women were treated in the past, which they were treated horribly. But are we gonna sit and sulk about it, or like what are we gonna do about it? You know what I mean? I'm probably gonna end up giving it 5 stars because I did learn a lot, and I was honestly disgusted a lot. There's like an hour and a half left, and I'm probably gonna finish it while I'm sitting in this parking ramp traffic. Anyways, all good people here. The next book I have to review, I spoiled it for myself, you guys. I don't know why I did that. I was kind of like, I don't really care. Accidentally read the last chapter and was like, oh, okay. But there are still some twists and turns that I'm like, weren't revealed. And I just like skimmed the last chapter. I didn't actually read it. I have like 100 pages left, and I just don't really care. Like, I'm probably just gonna skim it to figure out some other things. I don't think I would have guessed it. I do think it's like great writing, great storytelling. It didn't really feel fast-paced for me. I had to get into it, and even then I still wasn't really into it, which is I think why I kind of accidentally skipped to the end. But don't come for me. So I literally just finished All Good People Here, as you saw, and I'm so happy to be done with this book. What's so satisfying about finishing a book is being able to mark it read on Goodreads, and I just got Fable too, so marking it red on there as well. Am I gonna continue to use both? We will see. Like I said, I kind of spoiled the ending by reading a little bit of the last chapter, but the second to last chapter was crazy. That got me. I was thinking about it last night and why I was kind of thinking this was more slow, or why I didn't feel like I needed to know what happened. But I do think it had more literary elements where you'd kind of dive into the characters' lives and motivations, and while bad things happen to these characters, you're still getting to know them and their family and their lives, basically. So I think that's why it was a little slow for me. I will say the last like 50 or so pages definitely picks up. You're getting the thriller, the mystery, the whole thing like is very mysterious, of course. I'm not sure what I'm gonna rate it. Honestly, probably a 3.5, because I would recommend this. The story was interesting. It just didn't have that I need to know. Or no, I haven't finished All in Her Head yet. I will be finishing hopefully that in the next couple days because I only have a little bit left of that. And then the last book you're reading and getting out of my comfort zone is, let me go grab it, Red Rising by Pierce Brown. And this is a science fiction novel. I've heard so many good things about it, and the last science fiction novel I attempted to read was Dune, and I got 2 chapters in and was like, I got 2 chapters in and I was like, not right now. But I do want to read Dune eventually. But I've seen so many good things about this book, and I'm excited to get in. I know it's a series, so we will see how it goes. I will say I am comfortable with fantasy for sure, especially YA fantasy, and then romantasy, obviously, very comfortable with. But science fiction is a genre that I think, if you count The Hunger Games as science fiction, dystopian, that's probably the last science fiction book I read. And that was in like 5th grade, 6th grade, middle school. Why is everyone just popping off today with all the sounds? That's a lot of title pages. Cute. I love dedications. Ooh, love a good map. Acknowledgements in the beginning. Are there acknowledgements in the end? Ooh, he's fancy. In the beginning. It's like, in that mean in the beginning. Anyways. So I need to update you guys on this book. I'm literally maybe like 65% of the way through. I am already on part 4. So it's been a couple days and I've just been reading. I've actually been listening to it on audiobook and that has been super entertaining. Basically, there's just human society and they've expanded to live on other planets and moons in the solar system. So that's kind of where the sci-fi part comes in. This book is particularly set on Mars and we're following Darrow, who is a part of this society, and this society is broken up into castes is how I would describe it, and Darrow is the lowest caste and he has a lot of horrible things happen to him. Throughout this book, it's basically play war. Like he's at this school and they're playing war, but their play war has real consequences to the people who are a part of this game and at this school. It's been really fun. It's been a lot of strategy. The main character is extremely smart and observant, and that has been very, very enjoyable to read. And I'm excited to see where this goes. The main character also has a lot of anger. I haven't read a male main character in a while, so it's super interesting to be in that perspective as well. And I'm just excited for what happens in this book. And then the series is like well loved, and also there's I think 5 other books out. I know it'll be 7 books in total. I think the 7th book is not published yet, so including this one there's 6. This is just gonna be a journey. I love long series, so I'm excited to continue reading this, to see what happens, to see how it sets up the next book. Like I can just see, like I have no idea what's gonna happen in the future, but I can just see how good it's gonna be, how attached I'm gonna be to the characters. I'm gonna keep reading part 4. I want to finish this soon.
Chapter 34.
Other thing is this is extremely easy to read for a science fiction novel. Like I never felt confused at all. It was very easy to catch on to the slang and the social system and the structure of the society. That just makes everything so much easier too. Last chapter, what we just found out, crazy. Look who's joined us. Oh, hi. Are you gonna help me read this book? We have, oh my gosh, like 6 pages left. This book, literally so good. I am so happy I read it. I had this same feeling when I was reading Daisy Jones and the Six, and that was, I'm just amazed that these authors can come up with these things. Literally how I felt when I read Daisy Jones and the Six. I talked about it in my new releases video. It's how I felt when I read this book. The imagination and creativity and the execution of that imagination and creativity to create something like this and how it comes off to the reader, it's amazing. I love this book. I'm really excited for the rest of the series and to get into that. Normally I don't rate the first books of series 5 stars, and I don't think I'm gonna give this a 5 stars just because I really didn't feel that 5-star feeling or oh my god I love this book until honestly really close to the end. Definitely part 4, but wow, where the character was at in the beginning of the book to where they ended up, so good. And like I said, I love this main character. He is so smart, so observant, but he's very angry. So I'm curious to see where that gets him in the future, and I just love it. I think I'm gonna give it 4.5 stars. This is so good, I can't stop smiling. We read lots of books out of my comfort zone and I found some really good ones. I love The Woman. All in Her Head was super informative. All good people here. The ending, crazy. This book, incredible. This Is Your Sign. If you haven't dipped your toe in a different genre or a new author for a while, do it. You might find your next favorite read. With that, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you've read any of these books, as always, I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions about them in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!